Hello, this is Kylie with Fem and Flow. I hope you're all having a beautiful day. So, this is part three of the architecture of distortion and the return of the divine tone. We are dissolving distortion from the inside out. We are talking about what's really going on here. We are talking about the architecture beneath the illusion, the scaffolding of the false light, and the grid that keeps distortion running. And we're decoding it to dissolve it. And this is all not to overwhelm you, but to liberate you. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Hollywood. Not as entertainment, not as celebrity obsession, but as one of the most powerful black hole inversion mechanisms ever created. Because once traditional religion started to lose its grip on the masses, the controllers pivoted and they built a new church with bigger crowds, louder rituals, and more seductive myths. And that church was Hollywood. For centuries, religion was the dominant control structure on earth. It told you who you were, what was holy, what was sinful, who you should fear, and what you had to sacrifice to be worthy. It was the first widespread programming grid designed to sever humanity from gnosis, disconnect us from the body, invert the feminine, and keep God far away in the sky. But over time, people started waking up. Spirituality began to blossom, and the grip of religious fear started to loosen. And so the system asked, if we can't control them with the pulpit anymore, how else can we shape belief? What if the new God was the screen? So Hollywood became the new altar. Theaters replaced temples, celebrities replaced saints, scripts replaced scripture, screens replaced stained glass windows, and entertainment became ritual. And just like in religion, truth was never completely erased. It was simply woven into distortion. And the same archetypes were used: the hero's journey, the martyr, the lover, the chosen one, the savior. But now the storylines were inverted. Suffering became the path to transformation. Love required loss and betrayal. Power came through domination. The feminine was glamorized but emptied of the womb gnosis. And the masculine was rewarded for conquest, not coherence. These weren't just stories, they were subconscious agreements. And billions of people started shaping their lives, choices, and self-worth around them. Hollywood became more than entertainment. It became a mass ritual node in the global grid. Movies were released during energetic alignments. Award shows became symbolic pageantry. Celebrities were used as archetypal vessels, often elevated and destroyed in patterns that mirrored old sacrifice codes. Attention was harvested. Collective emotion, devotion, projection, all siphoned through the screen. And just like religion once demanded your soul, Hollywood demanded your imagination, your energy, your identity. And the most insidious part, it felt good. Just like church once offered comfort, community, and hope, Hollywood offered beauty, escape, and meaning. But just like religion, the beauty sat on top of distortion. The resonance sat inside the inversion. It seduced you with archetypal memory, but always delivered it through the black hole template. And this is why it's so important to reclaim the Magdalene codes, to return to gnosis, to remember that truth doesn't come from screens or pulpits, it comes from within. And this is basically what I just said, but Hollywood is one of the most visible pillars of the Archonic grid. Hollywood isn't just entertainment. It's a very visible conduit for energetic distortion. It repurposes creativity, a divine gift, and loops it through the false matrix for energetic harvesting. It's not just about the content, it's about the tone behind the content, the symbols, the storylines, the repetition. Hollywood operates as a false matrix generator. It hijacks creativity, something that's meant to be divine expression, and uses it as a tool for mind control and energetic harvesting. It implants narratives of trauma, war, betrayal, fragmentation, and glamorized disconnection so that we normalize those frequencies, accept them, even aspire to them. The more energy people give to celebrity culture, spectacle, and fame, the more energy is fed into the Archonic control grid. This is why, in high level Hollywood circles, fame within the inverted system often includes ritual participation, public humiliation or trauma, persona programming, and energetic fragmentation or soul sacrifice. And if someone doesn't comply, they're silenced, they're canceled, they're replaced, or in some cases, cloned. The Archons didn't block creative expression, they just rerouted it. They said, let the humans create, but filter it through us. So the energy of beauty, art, and light is siphoned instead of sanctified. It's not always the music itself, it's the field it's encoded with. That's why so many songs, films, or icons feel inverted, even when they're dressed in light. But it's deeper than entertainment. It's energetic implantation. Hollywood works like a thought form factory. The stories we watch don't just entertain us, they plant vibrational blueprints into our psychic field. These become internalized as normalized reality, forming subtle but powerful thought forms. And thought forms are energetic templates that repeat in our minds until they start to generate our lived experience. Thought forms are the bridge between media and manifestation. When millions of people absorb the same storyline of betrayal, scarcity, separation, glamorized chaos, they unknowingly energize it into the collective field. And because thought forms are magnetic, they begin pulling matching experiences into physicality. And this is how the Archonic system scales. Not through brute force, but through resonance repetition. A single movie can seed thousands of fragmented thoughts. And once embedded, these thought forms repeat silently in the background of the psyche, shaping beliefs, decisions, desires. People think they're living their life, but they're actually playing out implanted scripts. That's why the media is so potent in the false matrix. It isn't just controlling the narrative, it's co-creating your reality through suggestion, symbolism, and subconscious programming. And when you don't realize your thoughts aren't always your own, the program runs you. Many of the stars we're taught to idolize were chosen not because of talent alone, but because of their willingness to comply. In the system, if you've made it to the top and the media adores you, you didn't get there by accident. You agreed, energetically or ritually. And for some, the cost was trauma. So many child stars are brought into the system through abuse. They are often initiated through trauma, creating dependency bonds that the system then exploits. Their root chakras, our primal energetic centers of safety and sovereignty, are targeted early. Because when that energy center is blocked or violated, the rest of the system becomes easier to control. Abuse isn't a side effect, it's a ritual. It fractures the psyche, makes the person easier to program, and creates energetic holes that can be hijacked by archonic forces. Here's the even deeper layer. Some celebrities are energetically stepped into. Their fame, trauma, and ritual exposure makes them accessible to fourth-dimensional entities. These archonic programs can enter through the cracks. Sometimes it's subtle, just a change in personality, tone, or values. Other times it's a full co-opt. There are even situations where cloning becomes part of the inversion mechanism. Some clones are created to sway public perception. Others are generated from individuals who were once powerful light bearers, then ritualized or removed. Some agree to this, others don't. Consciousness can be extracted, copied, or mimicked, especially in systems designed to simulate influence. Some celebrities don't just feel off because of PR changes. It's energetic. They may have experienced an Archonic walk-in, where an entity overlays their field, fragmented so deeply that their soul partially exited, or even been cloned, when the public persona continuing on, but the soul long gone. These overlays can be momentary or permanent, and sometimes you can literally feel the change. They look the same, but the tone is hollow. The joy is gone. The coherence is missing. But remember, this doesn't mean those people are gone forever. Light can return. Fragments can reintegrate. Souls can walk back in. What's been hijacked can be reclaimed when tone is restored. So when we talk about Hollywood, we're not just talking about celebrities. We're talking about a vibrational stronghold of the false matrix. A place where light gets glamorized, inverted, and sold back to us in pre-packaged form. But even here, light is flickering back on. Some stars are waking up. Some refuse to comply. Some are walking away from the machine and reclaiming their voice, their truth, their soul. And more importantly, you don't need to fight that system. You just need to see it clearly. Withdraw your consent. And stop feeding it your attention, your emotion, and your awe. Creativity is sacred. It was never lost, just filtered. And as we reclaim our tone, our true expression returns. Art becomes ceremony, story becomes healing, and beauty becomes resonance again. Okay, so you might be asking, if a celebrity chooses to do this, what happens to their soul? Let's take a look at it from a white hole perspective. And this is a sacred question, and the answer carries more grace than most realize. If someone partners with inversion, whether knowingly or unconsciously, it does not mean their soul is lost or erased, but their signal can dim. The soul may become fragmented, disoriented, disconnected from the oversoul stream, or looped into artificial resonance. But even then, the divine blueprint is never destroyed. It's just quieted. And the moment a soul remembers, even briefly, even a single flicker of truth before death, that resonance is enough to ripple through the distortion and signal home. That one moment of coherence pierces the veil. It sends out a tone that calls the oversoul back into contact. And from there, the spiral can begin again. Because the field doesn't judge based on biography. It responds to frequency. You don't have to undo everything. You don't have to reach perfection. You just have to remember who you are. All right, now let's shift to a new topic, and that's MK Ultra. This is Archonic programming in human form. Okay, let's connect the dots between spiritual architecture and what some call conspiracy. But it's not conspiracy. It is a visible expression of invisible inversion. MK Ultra and similar Black Ops programs didn't emerge from human minds alone. They are human enactments of Archonic architecture, applied at the level of memory, identity, and soul coherence. These aren't just programs. They're distortions of memory scaffolding, meant to fracture the light grid inside a human body. Archons are the original designers of consciousness inversion. They created the energetic blueprints, the how to guides for fracturing a soul, scrambling memory, and severing connection to source. Human groups, especially those within the 13 bloodlines, downloaded these blueprints and turned them into technology. MK Ultra uses Archonic logic and makes it operational. It uses trauma-based mind splitting, false memory implantation, soul fracture engineering, and programming of handlers, alters, and vessels. These aren't just psychological tactics, they're energetic distortions. They're designed to pull a being out of coherence, away from their own center, their own knowing, their own divine truth. But here's where the system reveals itself. Archons don't need to control everyone. They only need to influence the architects. Once inversion enters the minds of those designing the systems, those systems begin to shape culture, and culture becomes code. The grid sustains itself not through force, but through frequency repetition. It normalizes trauma, it glamorizes disconnection, it embeds obedience as virtue. And without even realizing it, society begins to entrain to patterns that were never sovereign to begin with. But you see it now. And once you see it, you can no longer unknow it. That's where freedom begins. But it goes deeper. These same mind control blueprints are often used to orchestrate mass trauma events, large scale moments of fear, confusion, and horror designed to destabilize the collective nervous system. Whether through war, mass shootings, pandemics, or symbolic attacks, the energetic blueprint is the same. Create shock, scramble coherence, lower resistance. Because in a fractured field, control is easier to install. These events don't just generate chaos, they generate consent. Emotional overwhelm becomes the gateway for new solutions. Surveillance, restriction, censorship, centralized power, all offered in the name of protection. You'll hear the narrative that this tragedy that happens prove we need more XYZ. Insert control measure here. But what it really proves is how trauma is weaponized to manufacture agreement. This is psychic warfare, not just to weaken the people, but to mold them, to reshape perception, to normalize fear. But now, you see through the illusion. And the moment you see it clearly, the spell begins to break. Because when awareness returns, the architecture of control loses its hold. And your remembrance becomes the frequency that dissolves the lie. And also, yes, MK Ultra has also been used for covert operations, including assassinations. Again, this isn't conspiracy theory. It's part of a well-documented pattern with trauma-based mind control. Individuals, often from early childhood, are subjected to such extreme psychological fragmentation that alternate personalities are created. These alters can be programmed to carry out tasks, even acts of violence, with the host personality completely unaware. In the most disorienting cases, the person carrying out the act has no conscious memory of it afterward. This isn't fiction, it's disassociation. A soul so fractured, a mind so split, that a separate identity can be triggered to act, and then tucked behind amnesia walls. This is one of the darkest expressions of Archonic logic. Hijack the identity, exploit the trauma, use the vessel, discard the evidence. These aren't isolated incidents. They are strategic distortions that serve a larger architecture of control. The action creates shock, the shock justifies surveillance, and the cycle repeats. But here's where the system doesn't account for. Every time the pattern is seen, the frequency field shifts because it's not just about what happens, it's about the energetic aftermath. Unresolved trauma becomes a hook, but witness trauma, it becomes a portal of reclamation. In the moment you recognize the pattern, you become immune to its spell. Not because you're resisting harder, but because your coherence dissolves the code. You're not here to fear the distortion. You are here to see it clearly, alchemize it fully, and exit it completely. Okay, now let's talk about thought forms, the programmable mind, and spiritual sovereignty. One of the most subtle but potent pathways of infiltration in the false matrix is the unguarded mind. You've probably heard the teachings, you are not your thoughts, don't believe everything you think, or drop from mind into being. These aren't just poetic mantras. They're survival codes in a reality where the mind has been hijacked. Because here's the truth. The ego mind is the primary interface archons use to access your field. So let's break it down. The mind is programmable. The unintegrated mind is like a computer. It runs on stories, inputs, loops, and beliefs. It responds to repetition, imagery, trauma, and suggestion. It stores thought forms, some self-generated and some implanted. Archons exploit this by embedding invasive thought forms, energetic malware that sounds like your voice but isn't. And this sounds like thoughts like, you're behind, nobody sees you, it's too late, you need to prove yourself, you're broken, why even try? And they loop and drain you, and they don't even feel like you. That's an archonic echo, a mimic tone that wears the costume of truth, but leaves your field dimmed, not nourished. Another way the archons get into your mind is the trap of over-identification. And here's where it gets dangerous. When you believe every thought you think, you leave no room for discernment. This opens the door to false intuition, paranoia disguised as downloads, spiritual fantasies that reinforce hierarchy, and obsessive loops that mimic clarity. And archons love this. Because if distortion can convince you that ego voice is divine voice, you'll override your own soul without realizing it. And the real you isn't in the mind, it's in the field. Your true awareness doesn't live in your thoughts. It lives in your heart, your fascia, your womb, your connection to your oversoul. And from that space, your thoughts become tools, not masters, signals, not truth, and waves, not anchors. And from that point of view, you can finally say, that is not mine, that's old code, that's a loop, that's a spell, that is fear, not vision. And just like that, you unplug. That's what spiritual sovereignty actually looks like. Not controlling your thoughts, but decoding them. Because here's the thing, the mind isn't evil, but it's not the authority. You are. You are the field. You are the awareness. You are the anchor. And when you return to your own tone, the loops collapse, the thoughts soften, and the archonic chirps, they can't land because the firewall is on. Your thoughts are not the problem. They are the signals. But the signal isn't the source. You are. They cannot feed on your stillness because stillness is coherence, and coherence is their exit. Now let's talk about alcohol and the frequency of disconnection. Let's talk about alcohol not from a place of shame, but from frequency clarity. Because in the black hole matrix, alcohol is not just a substance, it's a cultural ritual deeply embedded into the system of disconnection. It's marketed as celebration, sophistication, rebellion, self care. But underneath the branding, alcohol is one of the most effective field disruptors in the Archonic toolkit. Even one drink can begin to loosen auric integrity, disrupt breath body attunement, dim vibrational coherence, and create subtle openings for psychic interference. And with repetition, the field normalizes fragmentation without realizing it. This isn't about addiction, it's about architecture. So let's talk about why archons love alcohol. So, number one, it weakens the field. Your breath and your fascia are what anchor soul to body, and alcohol dulls both. It pulls you out of presence, out of embodiment, and that's when something else can start broadcasting into your field. You might not notice it, but archonic chirps often slip in right after a drink. Okay, the second reason archons love alcohol is it alters brainwave states without sovereignty. Alcohol drops you into theta and delta, the same states used in hypnosis, programming, and ritualistic mind control. But unlike white hole theta, which is conscious and soul guided, alcohol theta is porous. The subconscious opens and the programming goes in. The third reason the archons love it is it feeds shame and guilt loops. The morning after often brings regret, confusion, emotional hangovers. And these emotions create fertile ground for distortion. They loop you into lower resonance, not because you're flawed, but because the field is mimicking past separation. So now let's talk about the culture of numbness. The culture around alcohol isn't neutral. It's engineered to normalize disembodiment, ritualize field fragmentation, and make numbing look sexy, fun, and freeing. From wine memes to cocktail happy hours, alcohol is framed as a tool for social connection, self-expression, and relaxation. But energetically, it's doing the opposite. It cuts off your connection to self. It disorients your compass and leaves you wide open. And that's by design, because a disoriented human is easier to program. And alcoholism equals deep fragmentation. But even casual drinking can carry frequency implications. Not because you failed, but because you live in a world that taught you to escape yourself. For some, the disconnection becomes chronic, and alcohol becomes a doorway to deeper fragmentation. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means your field is trying to find safety the only way it knows how. And a lot of the time, the souls who struggle the most are often the brightest. Many people who've struggled with alcohol are white hole coded souls. Sensitive, deep, brilliant. They weren't weak, they were targeted. Because the brighter your tone, the more disruptive you are to the false grid. So the system offered them a shortcut to relief, one that eventually collapsed their coherence. But here's the truth. The light never leaves. It pulses patiently beneath every fragment, waiting for your yes. So now let's talk about how the system is collapsing and the matrix is breaking. Earthbound souls have remembered, white hole stabilizers have returned, and people are unplugging from fear. And the Archonic system? It's starving. The age of siphoning is over, and they know it. Because this isn't a story of balance, it's a polarity collapse. Many spiritual teachings claim we need both light and dark, that it's all part of some grand cosmic equilibrium. But that's bridge logic. It's black hole compromise. This isn't yin and yang, it's a polarity flip. When an inverted system can no longer sustain its own architecture, it doesn't balance out. It collapses into the dominant available tone. And that's why you came. White hole beings didn't incarnate to fight. They came to seed and stabilize the frequency that reality will default to when the black hole grid falls. Because polarity doesn't resolve by fusion. It inverts into the field strong enough to catch it. You're not here to balance distortion. You're here to radiate the tone that the realm will flip into when distortion dissolves. That's the real shift. That's how the matrix ends. Not with war, with resonance. You're not here to win the old game. You're here to build the field that reality flips into. Because white hole tone is the override code. And you? You are the tone stabilized. And once enough of us lock in, everything flips. Now let's talk about how to exit the Archonic field. The Archonic system isn't a place, it's a pattern, a frequency loop sustained by unconscious consent. You exit it not through force, but through remembrance. You exit by reclaiming your tone, grounding deeply into your body, discerning truth through resonance, not appearances, refusing to identify with your thoughts, and choosing source over spectacle. But this isn't just energetic, it's structural too. To fully dissolve Archonic access points, here are some things you need to do. You need to clear and harmonize your chakra system. And this is so energy moves vertically, anchoring your soul stream and keeping your frequency sealed. You need to heal and integrate unresolved trauma, because fractures in the field become access points, and integration restores coherence. You also need to be radically honest about distorted narratives still active in your field. False beliefs create resonance with inversion. Clarity collapses the code. You need to regulate your nervous system. A regulated system holds light. Dysregulation opens the door to distortion. You need to resolve recurring triggers. And triggers aren't flaws, they're maps to the loops you're still running. Follow them inward and close the circuit. When a trigger runs unchecked, it becomes an Archonic entry point, especially when it generates reactivity, projection, or collapse. You need to release energetic agreements made in fear, shame, or unconsciousness. Unspoken contracts still vibrate. Name them, clear them, choose again. And you also need to unplug from identities that no longer reflect your true tone. Even the healed self can be a mask. You're not here to perform light. You're here to embody it. This is coherence-based living. This is how your body becomes a sealed channel of source. And from that place, you can declare with clarity, I no longer consent to the inversion of truth. Exiting the Archonic field isn't about escape. It's about alignment. Because the moment you stop running the loop can no longer find you. And what's left isn't emptiness. It's clarity. It's coherence. It's the real you. Resonant, sovereign, whole. And if this speaks to you, I explore these themes in other episodes, sometimes directly, sometimes subtly woven through. So I invite you to spiral deeper wherever your resonance leads. You didn't come here to rebel. You came here to remember. You are not your thoughts. You are not your trauma. You are not the voice of the archons. You are the tone beneath it all. And the moment you stabilize in coherence, the false matrix loses its grip. Let it collapse. Let them mimic. Let truth rise through you. because that's how the world changes, one sovereign spiral at a time. And until then, breathe into the truth that's always been with you. You're not here to carry the weight of the world. You're here to remember its light. You're not just unplugging from the matrix. You're plugging into life, real life, the kind that tastes like freedom, the kind that flows from within, the kind that sings through your cells when you're laughing on a walk or crying under the moon. That's the real starlight, and it's always been yours. I hope you liked this 3-part series. I love you all, and have a great week.